Welcome to episode 3. There was a moment I didn't know if Emily was going to make it, and I didn't know if our daughter was going to make it either. Today, we talk about that day, which is one of the most difficult days of our life and one of the most beautiful days of our life at the same time. It's the first time we've told that story.
I think I've told the story in therapy for sure, but it definitely is the thing that changed our lives forever. And it made us really believe in the mantra, two things can be true at the same time, because it was the most beautiful day that our daughter that we prayed for so long was born. And it was the day that I almost lost my life and was no longer around to enjoy that. So it's a heavy one. And we have our box of tissues. I have my comfy blankie with me because I know it's going to be a little bit tough to talk about, but it's something that truly, when we thought about starting this podcast, this was one of the key things that made us really feel compelled to do that, because through this journey, we felt very alone in the sense that we didn't have a lot of other people we knew that had been through something quite as traumatic. I think there's pieces of the story where we found community, whether that be the infertility part or some of the medical diagnoses, certainly the NICU of it all. But we struggled to find community and felt so long that our story was just so extreme.
It was definitely very traumatic. And that day, like you said, two things can be true: beautiful and traumatic, all wrapped into one. But let's start sort of at the beginning of our journey. Right? We got married, and then after a year or two, decided, hey, let's try to have a kid.
Yeah. So my sister had actually had her child right before we got married. And I had always known I wanted to be a mom, but until I was around a baby in the family, it hadn't seemed like such a priority. And all of a sudden, I was like, I want to start a family. Like,
A baby fever.
yeah, baby fever. And it wasn't just baby fever, right? It was like I was so excited about our love and our marriage, and I just wanted children to be a part of that story. And so we took a trip to Europe. We went to 6 different countries. It was so fun, and we kind of agreed like that'll be our last trip before we have kids.
Yes, Barcelona was probably our favorite.
Yeah, Barcelona. We went to Paris. We went to London. We went to Venice, Rome. It was crazy, but it was so fun. And we came back and started officially trying. Now, we've learned through this process that we didn't really know what trying meant, in the sense that we were trying in the fact that we weren't using anything to prevent it. I'll say it that way.
Yep.
But when I say trying in this way, I had started getting the ovulation trackers. I had started testing all of those things so that I really was honing in on the window of fertility.
Yep. The window of opportunity, if you will. Yeah. So we would try, truly trying for about a year.
Yeah.
And then we started to sort of ask some questions. This wasn't happening like we thought it would, or like we saw it happening with other people, or just in life in general.
Yeah. And I think, we both come from families, my mother, your mother sneezed and got pregnant. Like, so we had no reason to think that that wouldn't be the same for us, right? We were young, in our late 20s. We were healthy, working out, eating well. We had no reason to think that this wouldn't happen quickly. And so I remember after a few months, I started to feel kind of discouraged. And, of course, all the comments I always got were, you're too stressed, right? That's why it's not happening. You're too stressed. You need to relax, go have a couple drinks, go out, have fun, make it fun. And we were doing that. And then I remember at some point, like a little before a year mark, I said, I think there might be something more going on that is leading to us not getting pregnant.
Right.
Yeah, so at that point, I thought, why don't we just go see a new OB/GYN? I had been doing research on who I wanted to go to and friend recommendations and things. And so we went to this first appointment, and right away, the doctor was like, I am actually really surprised that you're not pregnant by now. And it was nice because it was the first time someone had validated, like, yeah, this is kind of taking a while, and maybe there might be something else going on. And so we immediately ordered an AMH test, which is a blood test that essentially tests the quality of your eggs and the amount of your eggs so that you kind of know what you're working with. And right away, he called and was like, yep, the results show like your eggs are that of someone double your age. So, you know, for you to only be in your late 20s, this AMH result is showing me why you're not getting pregnant. And I had also done a test to have my tubes, like the dye test to make sure, because apparently, again, every month an egg is dropping from each side. So on top of my AMH levels being really low, one of my tubes was blocked. So I was actually only releasing an egg every other month. So again, the picture became really clear, and they advised that we pursue fertility,
Yep.
infertility treatments.
Correct. And quick plug for the AMH test. We had no clue that a woman can just go get that test really cheaply and understand where they're at in terms of how viable a pregnancy could be, or how viable it is they could get pregnant so easily.
Yeah.
We would have done that much earlier.
Oh, yeah. Like, I tell people now, after you get married and when you're thinking about having kids, even if it's in the future, right? Because this test could show you that you need to freeze your eggs sooner than you thought you would. So I've told couples like, hey, have you had your AMH tested? And they're like, what's that? So I don't really know why that isn't talked about more, but it was just so simple. And it made me feel like, again, if you're a woman who has experienced infertility and you have had to go through the month after month after month of seeing that negative pregnancy test, it's a lot. It's emotional, it's painful. And just to think that there could have been a test that I could have done to avoided all of that was something that I really would encourage other people to pursue if you can, if you're having, a hard time getting pregnant. So we chose Carolina Conceptions as our treatment clinic. I love everything about them. We started going to see them, and they initially recommended an IUI. So an IUI is where you take fertility drugs, and then when you go to check how many eggs you have, if it's, looking good, you essentially take the sperm and insert it in some way. I'm saying in some way because we didn't end up doing the IUI. So
Right.
I don't really know a lot about it, but we did do the process of doing the injections.
Yeah, that was interesting. So I remember standing in front of our fridge, and the first time I did it, I was like super nervous. I'm not a medical professional. I have no experience with that kind of stuff at all. So putting a needle into your stomach, I was like, oh gosh, this is a lot. I ended up getting good at it, stuck it in, and just became a part of something that we did to make sure we got pregnant.
Yeah, and I am not a needles person at all. So there was no way I was doing it to myself. So then we went for our check of the eggs, and we get in there and they do the ultrasound, and they're like, oh wow. And I'm like, I go, oh wow, that sounds good. They're like, you have a lot of eggs. And I'm like, oh, that's great. They're like, well, yeah, but like, if you fertilized all said eggs, you would be Octomom. I don't know if you guys remember that woman that had 8 children. And I'm like, okay, right? Like, crazy to go from a year and some months of not being able to get pregnant at all to suddenly having to have a discussion about what if you got pregnant with too many babies?
Yeah, selective reduction, I think, is the word that they threw around. So yes, if all of those fertilized, then you have a conversation of, do you keep all of those? Is that safe? Is
It's
that
not safe.
right? Is that ethical? Is that something that jives with your religious perspective? Like all of those things happen, and that was a lot initially because we were like, oh, I'm not sure we're ready to even think about that.
Yeah. So then it was like, well, maybe we just cancel this round and just start all over again next month. And I'm like, no way, no way.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to do that. We've come this far. And the doctor we had that day was not even our regular doctor, because our doctor was out that day. And he came in and he was so wonderful. And he said, listen, if you go home and try naturally with this many eggs and your age and everything, I bet you'll get one fertilized, maybe two.
Hmm.
And what's so crazy is right before I had gone into that appointment, I had been really looking for signs and signals to tell me if this was going to work. And I got out of the shower one day and there were two baby bluebirds sitting outside of my shower where my window is in my bathroom, right there on the perch. And that's not common. Like, I don't know that I've ever seen, well, since I have, because bluebirds now are my like spirit signal. But there were two little baby bluebirds. And I thought to myself, that's it. I'm going to get pregnant and I'm going to have two.
Hmm.
And I said to the doctor that day, well, this tracks what you're saying, because I saw those two baby bluebirds. And again, I'm thinking he probably thinks I'm a nut, but it was really what I believed. And so we went home and we played some Usher music.
Love in the club.
Yeah. And we had a good old time. And after that, you have to wait. And then when you are in the window to test if you're pregnant, you go back into the fertility clinic to see if your HCG is doubling. And sure enough, ours was, and it was confirmed we were pregnant. And this sweet man of a doctor who has helped so many people, okay, over so many years, sent me a handwritten letter after he found out that we were pregnant. And he had printed off a picture of two bluebirds.
Yeah, that was really special.
And I opened that letter and I just sobbed because I was like, this is it. Like, God's timing is right here. This is exactly where we were meant to be. This is exactly how this was supposed to happen. And when I tell you I was excited, like I had felt like I had won the lottery 10 times over.
Yeah. Well, we were trying this for a long time, and month over month of not getting a positive pregnancy test, or you getting your period, and it was discouraging.
Yeah.
And something we really wanted.
Right. And the amount of worry, women, if you've been through this, couples, if you've been through this, it's devastating, right? Every time you see a post of someone announcing their pregnancy, every time you're invited to a baby shower. And that's the thing I want to empathize with other women in this position. By no means are you not happy for them.
Mm-hmm.
You're so happy for these people in your life that are having these babies because it's the thing you want the most too. And yet it's okay. Two things can be true, right? It's okay to be happy for them and to be devastatingly sad for you.
Right.
Those two things can exist in the same space. And it doesn't mean you're a bad friend. And it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means you're human. And it's a visceral feeling, right? It's just a baseline human emotion. And when it's involving something as precious as having a baby, it's a heightened emotion.
Yeah. And looking back, you can say, oh, well, things will happen as they should, right? You can look back on that from our position now and say that, but when you're in it, you can't see that. It's very, you're completely focused on that, and it's something that people need to understand. It's okay to be in that moment, in those feelings, because that's where you are, and it will get better and things will work out, but it's hard sometimes to be in that place.
Right.
So I think we went back to the appointment, or another appointment, to check and see how the baby was coming along.
Yes. So we had an ultrasound early on. I think this is earlier than a lot of people have it if you're going through fertility. So we went in pretty early and there was a heartbeat, the most beautiful sound in the whole wide world. And we were so happy. We were just like, here we go, right? I was having pregnancy cravings. I remember, throwing up salmon, but I was so happy. Like, I'll take the throw up, I'll take all the things. I was just so on cloud nine. And as we transition into what started happening next, I think it's important to note that I think part of the reason this next piece was so challenging is because I thought we'd already been through the hard part.
The infertility.
I thought we'd already done the really hard part, and now we were at the pregnancy, and now we get to just decorate a nursery and make a baby shower and think of names and just be happy. I thought that's what we were going to get. So then at around 15 weeks, we had planned a gender reveal. That's something we kept from our families. And so we were really excited. And a good friend of mine had helped plan it and gotten these really cool cannons where you pop them and there's confetti that goes everywhere. To this day, I find pieces of that confetti. Like it was a gnarly cannon.
That makes me happy when I find little pieces of like, right now they're silver.
Yeah.
Before they were pink, but now they're so weathered. They're like in the backyard, like in the corner.
Yeah.
Well,
so all of our family came over and we lined them up on the back in the backyard along the fence, and it was a girl. And it was just, I watch that video sometimes when I'm having a hard day because everyone was so happy.
mm-hmm.
And none of us knew like how crazy things were about to get. But like in that moment, that day, it was a really beautiful moment.
It was.
And everyone was so happy. And it was like, oh my gosh, we're going to bring this girl into our family. And it was just a wonderful moment. And then I started bleeding. And everybody, who's been pregnant knows bleeding during pregnancy is not a good thing. And I instantly called the office. I didn't know what to do. It happened that same weekend as the gender reveal. And here's the tricky part that I learned is that when you have a baby that is not yet viable and something is going wrong, there's not really anything they can do about it, right? Because the baby is not viable. So I would call the office, they would schedule me an appointment, I would come in and they would do a check. So the first time that I had the bleed, they did an internal ultrasound and discovered that they thought I had a bleeding hematoma somewhere in the uterus area and that maybe it was just working itself out. Nothing to be concerned about, go home, keep monitoring. These bleeds continued to happen like once a week at least. And then we went to an appointment where we were told that what I had was a bleeding placenta previa.
That's right.
Do you remember the explanation of that? Because I don't.
Yeah. Yeah, so I do. And it's interesting because when we were talking through this, kind of preparing for the podcast today, I didn't remember a lot about all of this. And I think it was maybe my brain trying to protect me. So I had to go back and dig and just sit with everything that happened and try to remember things. And I did, but it's still really difficult. But I do remember that essentially what happens with the placenta previa is you have your uterus and the placenta implants in your uterus, but the previa implants at the opening of the uterus below here. So that's where the bleeding comes from. And, as a baby continues to grow and grow, if you do have a placenta previa, that might shift a little bit, but yours just never shifted.
Yeah.
As the baby was growing and growing, it stayed there and you kept bleeding.
Right. So then we had the anatomy scan. She looked wonderful, beautiful. And we had planned a little trip to Myrtle Beach. And, I remember saying, like, if we go in this anatomy scan and it's bad, we're just not going to go. And it was good. And so, again, it was this roller coaster of you're really, really worried. Then you get a report that everything's okay. And you have this moment where you can breathe. And we get to the hotel, everything's wonderful. We eat dinner. That night I had another bleed, and it was a bigger bleed. And I remember you're looking at hospitals. I'm on the phone with the doctor. And here's the hardest part, I think, about this part of the story is that we are not medical professionals. So imagine this. You're pregnant, you're bleeding, that's bad. And you're getting questions like, well, how much blood is it? Is it soaking a pad? How long has it soaked the pad? And you're just like, I don't know. I don't know. And then you're scared because you're making these decisions that feel very crucial. What if I make the wrong decision?
Right.
What if we say, no, okay, it's okay. And then we don't go in and then something bad happens. So it was that stress constantly. So then I got to 22 weeks. I went to a doctor's appointment and she sat me down and said, come next week, in the next couple weeks, once baby is viable, most likely you're going to have another bleed and most likely you're going to be admitted to the hospital. And I'm like, what do you mean? For like, why?
Yeah.
And she's like, cause you're going to be there probably from then till the rest of your pregnancy. You are a very high risk pregnancy and we are going to need to have constant monitoring for you.
And this is obviously completely foreign to us, right? You think about sort of bed rest, right? Maybe you have a higher risk pregnancy, you stay in the bed and you rest to make sure everything's fine. But no, this is very high risk. You need to be monitored 24/7 in the hospital. So that was really sort of jarring to us.
Yeah, I remember leaving that appointment because I was alone. That was great. Hearing that news alone. You're at work.
Yeah.
I remember driving to the Chick-fil-A parking lot, sitting in the parking lot and just sobbing. And I called my boss. And I thank God all the time that I had such an amazing boss. And I said, like, I didn't know what was up or down. And I had to tell her. And she literally got teary with me, told me, don't worry about it at all. Like, take care of you and your family. Work does not matter right now. And that's another thing along this whole journey, whether it was the doctor at the fertility clinic, whether it was my boss right then, whether it was other doctors that delivered us, there was always people along the way that said what needed to be said to make me feel like I was going to be okay.
Right.
Even though everything was falling apart, it was like there were these people that just kept showing up to let me know, hey, I got you on this thing, or hey, I got you on that thing.
Well, it's a testament to who you are too as a person, right? You've built a life in which people want to support you and want to be there for you. So that's a massive testament to you and who you are as a person.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. I didn't really think about it that way. I just was like, thank God, people are here for us. And so I knew at this point, all right, the next big bleed, we're going to the hospital. And sure enough, I had a big one. It was the middle of the night. We're like trying to scramble to get stuff in a bag.
Dog care.
I'm like sobbing, saying goodbye to my babies. I'm like, I don't know when I'm going to see you. Like, I just didn't know what was happening. I felt like I was in some sort of Netflix show that I didn't sign up for. And unfortunately, I didn't have the script. So I didn't know what the hell was coming next.
Yep.
I just knew this is not good. And I have to somehow make it through this. I just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other over and over and over, even though I just really want to go in a closet and hide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels surreal going through all this, right? Like, we don't know. This is foreign, like I said before. And now we're going into the hospital to a place called antepartum. What is that, right? It's like, I know about postpartum, but antepartum, didn't even know that's a thing.
Yeah.
So,
it's the
yeah.
pre-birth. And apparently there's an entire wing at Wake Med where me and other women and beautiful nurses who are God-send angels walking on earth took care of me. And that's where I stayed for weeks until we delivered.
Yeah.
And, I think it's important for us to kind of walk you through, like set the scene of what this really was like. So we are in a hospital. There is beeping. There is nurse care. We are in the hospital. And we're in this room in the corner. Props to whoever the hell pulled the strings to get us in that corner room. Because they was like, they about to be here for a hot minute. Let's at least put them up in the corner.
Well, we started in not the corner room for a few days. And then I think the person in the corner room left. And of course, you have like ins with the nurses because you just talk to them all day.
I'm like, oh,
yeah. So they get us in that corner room. So
yeah. So a typical day, you're still working.
Yes, I'm still working. 8 to 5, right, in the office every day. Right? Different world back then, and yeah, so I'm on the couch in this room. So I sort of wake up like I normally do, you know, have my shirt, slacks hung up on the shower rod, take a shower, brush my teeth, get dressed, you know, go into work, give you a kiss, and I'm out, and then you sort of are there
Yeah.
by
So then
yourself.
my day starts. And, I was really tired, which I'm grateful for because I got to sleep through some of these days where I was just like, there's no way I'm going to make it through the day. And I would get up, eat breakfast, and I would take a shower. And the thing to keep in mind here is when you are in a situation like this where they are worried that at any point you're going to have to be rushed into surgery, you have to constantly have an IV in.
Mm-hmm.
And for sanitation reasons, I suppose they have to change the IV every 3 days. And I have terrible veins. They roll apparently, so they can like get it in and then it will roll and they can't get it in. So my arms were bruised all up and down my arms.
I think, yeah. So they tried the sort of traditional stick, and then that really wasn't working after a couple days, and then they did the butterfly, then that really wasn't working, and then they had to come and bring like an ultrasound type
To find a
to
vein.
find vein. Like that's how difficult it is to find
Yeah.
your veins.
And
Oh.
some nurses were better than others. And so every 3 days I'm having to change this IV. And so you go to get in the shower, you have to wrap it with a paper with plastic wrap. You have to tape it, and then for 2 seconds I forget I'm in the hospital because I'm washing my hair and I bend my arm and it stabs. And I'm like, oh my God, nope, still here.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm telling you these details because it's really important to understand like the day-to-day suffering that was going on.
Yeah.
Right. I'm pregnant. I'm bleeding. I'm scared.
Laying in bed.
I'm laying in bed to have these pumps on my legs because they don't want me to develop blood clots, which could also kill me and Juliet.
You can't get up and go walk, really.
Yeah, I can't get up and go walk. I have to wait for someone to put me in a wheelchair. Not like I had anywhere to go, but that was my day to day. And I was reading, I was trying to find support groups. I was doing a lot of Googling. Honestly, thank God they did not have Chat GPT back then.
Oh gosh, I know.
Because honestly, I'm not even playing. My anxiety would have been through the roof. I would have been constantly asking, why is this happening? And what does that mean? And why am I bleeding? What should I say? Whatever. And that would have been bad. So take that for what it is if you find yourself in a similar situation. And
I think a big takeaway on that is trust your doctors.
Yeah.
Trust yourself, know your body, and it's a balance.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
It's very much a balance. So at this point, we were being told, every day is a victory. I literally had a board in front of me every day that I would look at, and it said goals, no bleeding, and stay pregnant. And so that was the goal. The hard part about a goal is usually there's something you can do to affect it. And in this case, there was absolutely nothing I could do. My body was doing what it was doing. And, what the doctors explained to me is as long as I'm okay, like I am alive and I am not bleeding enough to risk my life, that we need to keep my daughter inside with me, right? We knew that. We want this baby to stay inside as long as humanly possible. So we had conversations about what birth would look like. I got a chance to go to a C-section class, which was really helpful because I think I would have freaked out more when it happened if I hadn't.
Mm-hmm.
We got to go tour the NICU. We got to have amazing conversations with the NICU team. I sobbed and sobbed and sobbed through every one of these conversations because, again, it just didn't feel like it was real. And
Mm-hmm.
I have been diagnosed now with CPTSD, which is complex PTSD, which is something that happens when someone is in a traumatic situation, especially medical, over a long period of time. And I can remember one of the first symptoms I noticed was the day we went to tour the NICU.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in the wheelchair. You're walking next to me. The nurse is behind me. And I'm looking at these little babies, so small, wires everywhere. And I felt disassociated. I felt like this wasn't my real life.
Mm-hmm.
I started feeling like I was watching a show, like I was watching from above. Like my baby wasn't going to be in here. I wasn't gonna, I knew it, she was,
Mm-hmm.
but I just couldn't process it. And my therapist has explained to me that's something that the brain and the body do to protect you
Mm-hmm.
when you're in a very high stress, traumatic war, abuse. It helps you disassociate so that you can protect yourself from the reality that your mind cannot yet quite process that is happening.
Right. It's almost like you're touring the NICU was the point in which your brain sort of said, okay, this is enough.
Yeah.
I need to give
Yeah.
Emily a bit of a break here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's absolutely right. I had reached a point where I was like, okay, I have I have reached a point that I'm like gonna have a breakdown. And I couldn't break down because I had to stay pregnant for Juliet. I had to survive, if for no other reason than to have her. Like that was my goal. It was not about me. I just had to birth this child because there is no way we had come this far for her not to be able to get to live her life. That's not happening. So that was my goal. That was my mission. And I did everything I was supposed to do. I got 2 different magnesium drips that were hell on earth. They say it's like the worst menopause, hot flashes times a million. It was times 2 million. That's for brain protection. And then I got the shots to protect her lungs. And so at around 27 and a half weeks, my water broke. And I
And
remember thinking, like, okay, we're going to have her now.
and for the lungs, really quick, I think this is important. And this has provided me a decent amount of anxiety. I think you as well. You can only get that lung shot twice. And it's only effective or mainly effective if you do it within a certain amount of time,
First 48 hours.
first 40 hours before birth.
Yeah.
So it's a guessing game, right? And you want the best for your child, obviously. And one of the doctors explained it really nicely to me in terms of the lung development. When you have a premature baby, the lungs aren't fully developed, and the lung, you can think of the lungs as almost like um, grapes, right? And before you're born, the grapes are sort of sticky, and if they contract and expand, it's really difficult to do that when they're sticky, and that isn't fully developed until you're full term. Right. So this shot helps with that stickiness, so they're not sticky. So when they are born, you're able to breathe. The baby's able to breathe a lot easier than they would without that shot. Right. So I'm in my brain, I'm like, we've got to get that right. Right. And there's no way you can't like do that. Like it's a complete guessing game. Right. So it's that
like why I don't gamble in Las Vegas, because I don't gamble. Like that's not something I do because it makes me so anxious. Mm-hmm. So the water broke, and I knew in my gut this is the end. Apparently, you can go quite a while staying pregnant after your water breaks, as long as you don't get any infection from the sac being broken. So I was like, here we go. So anyway, that's when I knew in my gut, this is when we need to do the long shot. I just knew. I knew it. This baby's coming. And you talked a little bit about in a previous episode about my intuition. And sorry, this is where I'm going to get emotional, but as I processed all of this with my therapist, she's explained to me that yes, the doctors did what they did, and thank God, and saved us and everything. But the part that I played as her mother was knowing what was needed from an internal intuition perspective, right? I knew at this point that my body was failing, that I was no longer going to be able to feel confident that my body could do what she needed anymore to keep her alive. And I felt fully trusting that the NICU doctors could do a better job at this point than my body could. And I just knew that. I had never felt that way before in this whole process. But once my water broke, it was like my body was telling me, Emily, I'm done. Mm-hmm. Like I have done the most I possibly could do. And I just knew and prayed, quite frankly, that everyone would listen to me and that the doctors would agree that this is what needed to happen, because I knew inside that this needed to happen. And so a day later or 2 days later, I woke up in full labor. And again, going back to my intuition the night before, I looked at you and I
Mm-hmm.
said, she is going to be okay. It's going to be me.
Yep. And I heard that, and
Something is going to happen bad to me.
yeah. And in my mind, I'm like, no, Emily, everything's going to be fine. You're going to be okay. Not knowing what I know now about your intuition, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And, it's not that I didn't believe you, but maybe my mind didn't want to.
Yeah. And what I'm proud of about myself, again, much therapy later, is that I knew something bad was going to happen. And yet I had no fear going into that labor room.
It's probably somewhat relief.
I was so relieved. I woke up, I was in labor. The doctor came in. He was like, okay, it's go time. We got to go. They shaved my stomach really fast. They put the iodine prep on. It was absolutely like a scene from a movie. Like, all the faces of all of our family were looking like so concerned. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, baby. Like, I was just excited. Like, thank God these doctors are the best I know. They're going to be able to help her and save her and love her and take care of her. And I wasn't scared at all. We went into the OR. We had made our playlist that we wanted played while we were having our daughter, and I got the epidural, and I was just like, let's go. Like, I was just so ready to go. And one of our favorite songs, Humble and Kind by Tim McGraw, which is so like what we live by
Mm-hmm.
and how we feel, that was playing, I guess, when she came out, which makes so much sense because it's how we live our life. It's how it's.
And I remember, that's the only song that I remember when I went in.
Yeah. I
So
think at this point, I'm going to kind of let you tell the rest because
yeah.
all I'll say is I was on the table. I was looking up at the anesthesiologist and I could tell I was passing out. Things were getting really fuzzy. And I just remember saying, oh no, something's happening. And I remember her eyes to this day. And she looked at me and she said, it's okay. Calm down. You're going to be okay. And that's
Mhm.
the last thing I remember.
Yeah. So slightly before that, you get rushed back and they prep me to go in to be with you, right? So I get the OR scrubs, the little booties, the face mask, the hairnet, everything to get prepped to go into an OR and go to the delivery. So I go in, you're on the OR operating table, and there's a partition, right, probably around your chest. So I can't see anything that's going on below that. So I'm with you. Um, and again, one of the things I remember very clearly is the playlist that we had. I knew the songs were playing. The only one I remember is Humble and Kind. Um, and everything went pretty quickly in the beginning. So I'm mainly focused on you and making sure you're okay. And then I hear, oh, she's out. So Juliet was born. I didn't even see her. They took her out, rushed her in a different room. I didn't even really know that happened. So at that point, it's okay. Placenta comes out, right? Sew you up. We're good to go. So that's my thought process. Things are starting to take a little longer. And to your point, things started to get fuzzy. At one point, you said, "I'm starting to feel that." You're talking to the doctor, the surgeon, and he was like, "Okay," and had the anesthesiologist adjust some things. But then it continued to take longer and longer. And I'm sort of looking around. At one point, I look down. There's a table, and there's organs on the table, and I'm just like, "This is crazy." Um, and there was one point where I could feel the tone in the room changing, right? It's like, okay, the doctor isn't really, as he was confident, but he wasn't. It was different, right? It's more hectic. Nurses are running around a little more, and things are changing. So then they say, okay, I have to leave. So at that point, I'm like, I don't know what's going on. So I go into the hallway. A nurse comes out, thankfully, and says, there were some complications. Essentially, what was happening is your uterus was tissue thin at some points, and it wasn't contracting like it was supposed to. And because of that, the bleeding wouldn't stop, and you essentially hemorrhaged. Lots of blood transfusions, lost all the blood in your body, and they were just trying to keep you alive. I didn't know all that. She just said, everything's gonna be fine. You know, your kid's in the other room. Go look at her. So I'm like, all right. My mind's still sort of with you, but then I go into the room, and this is where, when we opened up, this is the moment I realized when I saw Juliet, and then I'm also thinking about you, that this is the most beautiful day of my life, and like the most difficult, tragic day as well. Those two things together. So I saw Juliet. She was beautiful. She was breathing on her own, and they were trying to figure out if she needed oxygen. They were weighing her. I pulled out a video. I was like, I can't I can't miss this. I need a video. Emily's gonna kick my ass if I don't, get a video of this. But it was just so beautiful. I couldn't hold her. Because there was she was hooked up to machines, and they were trying to figure everything out and get her stabilized to go back to the NICU. So they were doing all that, got her stabilized, put her in, I guess, some sort of transport, and got her to the NICU. So, okay, Juliet's good. She's stable. So I feel good about that. But it's still, she's not necessarily out of the woods. They have to monitor her and make sure she's okay. I come back out to the hallway, and just sort of standing there waiting, texting your mom, texting my mom, texting our parents, kind of letting them know what's going on. Didn't really know too much about it. Then the nurse came out, explained everything to me, and I'm just sort of stunned. And I break down to the nurse. I'm crying, and she did a great job. She put her hand on my shoulders, and everything's gonna be fine. She's in good hands. Everything's gonna be good. So I wasn't gonna leave until I saw you leave that room and go to the other room where you had to have a surgery. They had to essentially pack your uterus, go up through an artery, cauterize the veins in your uterus to stop the bleeding.
Right.
So she explained all that to me, and then they wheeled you out. I don't know if I was expecting. I guess in my mind I was expecting you to be awake and be like, "Hi, I'm going down to surgery."
Right.
Nope, you were out, and I just sort of put my hand on your shoulder, kissed you, and you rolled out. Um,
It's okay.
yeah, it was really hard. So then, I have to go and then talk to our family and let them know what was happening. But at that point, I just couldn't. So there was a little bathroom between, the operating room and where we were staying in the antepartum room. And I was in there for, I don't know, 20, 30, 45 minutes. I don't even know. Just completely broke down. Because I'm in between, possibly losing you, possibly losing Juliet. What does it look like if I don't have you? How do I raise her by myself? How do I go on with you if she's not there? And it's just, in those moments, you don't think to yourself, everything's going to work out fine. Everything's going to be good. You're completely in a mindset of like worst case scenario. And that's where I was. And that I tried to sort of get all that out in that bathroom. So I was able to sort of break down, get all of it out. and then go into the room our parents were staying in, hugged your mom, and it sort of, I think, probably collapsed into my mom.
I know, and it's so tough because I was the one going through it in the sense that I was the one almost dying, but you were the one awake for all of it, having to think about all these different things. Like, I think about that all the time. Like, I can't even imagine if the roles were reversed, having to go. Oh, it's just a crazy story. And I will tell you that when you get married and you think about who you're choosing, you definitely don't think this is something you're going to have to endure. But I couldn't have asked for a better partner to go through this with me
Mm.
and show up and stick it out and just do everything that needed to be done. And so again, this is a moment that changed our lives forever. And there's much more to this story and what happened next.
Yes.
And we will share that in the next episode, as I think we are a little emotionally tapped.
Yeah. I think we need a part 2 for sure.
Yeah. So we will pick this up next week where we'll talk about what happened next. Spoiler alert, I'm here. We did survive. I did survive. But next episode, we'll talk a lot more about what happened next in the days, weeks, months, and now years since.
Yep, absolutely. And if any of this resonated with you guys, if you had similar experiences or just want to comment, let us know. We'll chat back with you in the comments, and really appreciate you guys and love you.
Yeah, I love you too. And we love you. Like and subscribe, follow, share, all the things. Thanks.
Bye.
Ooh.